Ooh. It's Money Monday. And you know what's so super cool about this particular Money Monday is that it is falling on International Women's History Day. I was just about to jack that up because it's also Women History's Month. So I almost just really jacked that one up. So what is so super cool about this particular day is that, we're going to be speaking with a woman who is putting some money in my purse. I really wanted to be extremely focused on that this month about women making money moves so that while we are being very celebratory as it relates to Women History Month, and then today is Women International Day, I wanted to make sure that I was putting some money and some cash in your purse to go along with the celebration, okay? So Stephanie has been investing for over 13 years, and she has bought over 200 properties, right? And it seems that right now there is a lot of conversation about purchasing land. Whenever there's a lot of conversation, that always put on my journalism hat, and I begin to look for, like, gosh, why is this such a huge buzz? And what's so interesting, not really so interesting, just in the basis of just simple economics, is that one thing that they're not going to make any more of is going to be land. So it really comes down to a supply and demand system. So as I began to research to understand how it is that you can take a land purchase and make it a part of your real estate portfolio, and how it can create a higher level of ROI when you hold on to it, when you use it to put property on it, it just totally works out for you in your purse. So I wanted to bring in someone who started her journey in a very, very interesting way. And the way that she shares how she started her journey, it makes it seem like, if you get started tomorrow, that you can really replicate some of the success. All right, sis. So if you're sitting here with us at this time, I want you to open up your spiritual purse, your actual purse, your spiritual bank account, your actual bank account, because after this show with Stephanie, this is how I want you to feel, sis. I want you to feel like somebody just gave you some money, sis. I want you to feel like somebody just gave you some money. I want to feel like you're cashing out, sis. That's how I want you to feel. I want you to feel like money is flowing to you easily and effortlessly, and you recognize it, and you're able to implement the skills that go along with it. All right, that said, we're going to go ahead and bring Stephanie on today. All right, hey, Steph, hey.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, hey, Steph, did you grab some of that money? Steph,
yes,
did you grab some of that money?
Snatch and grab.
All right, good. Okay, so we were talking about you. I like the way, one of the most important things is, as women, people always say, Shani, you really like talking about money all the time. And I'm sure you may also get that as of commentary, like, gosh, all you do is talk about money. But what's so interesting is that, really not talking about money. I'm really talking about choice. That's what I'm really advocating for. And I think that when women have access to more choices to create more resources for herself, she puts herself in a very powerful position. Would you say this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Right. Yes. And so mostly I'm not just about cash. I'm really about choice. And when you have access to more cash, it creates more choices for you. And with your cash consumption, you have made some very interesting choices. So tell me, you were making a lot of money. A lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money and a lot of work.
A lot of money. I like to talk about women who are making money because other women need to know that it is possible. And the easiest way to experience possibility is to be able to see it. And as long as you don't move over to jealousy and you stay in that place of inspiration, it gives you the opportunity to be able to replicate some of what you're seeing in your own way. So I really love when women are getting to the bag, because if you get into the bag, that means I can get to the bag, and then I ain't got to get to the bag by myself.
So true.
Yes. Okay. So interesting enough, you were making a lot of money.
Yep.
And then you sat down with your CPA, and actually the way how you got into land purchases is because you got into it because you needed some way to reduce your taxation.
Correct.
All right. Tell me about that.
Okay. So he introduced the whole real estate investing thing in a group. So I started out with group investments. I was hands off in real estate investing, and I just would take my money and invest it into making it make a profit, right? So I was somewhat of a money lender or a private investor, but I wasn't really holding any properties. So I sat down with my CPA, which was my financial planner at the time as well. And he talked about, hey, have you ever thought about picking up some of these land parcels? The prices are good. So I say, you know what, that's a good idea. Let me look into that. But my thing is, I'm like, what am I gonna do with it, right? So I stumbled upon some opportunities and ended up picking up some for a very good price, and held those properties for a few years before I decided to get into the development side of actually putting structure on those plots.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for those of you that are listening in, I just want to even sometimes like the steps are always being given. So I always like to break them down just in case you may be missing them just a little bit. So the first piece of money that you already paid us is number one, is that when you got started, it actually came from another professional. So it wasn't even your idea. It came from another professional. You just was smart enough to go ahead and implement what it is that they recommended. That was the first step. And then the second part of it is that you didn't go in by yourself. You got into it by way of group investing. You're also muted, so unmute yourself, Stephanie. You're muted. So you got into it. You got into it by way of group investing. Yep. Now you're good.
Okay.
Yep, you're good. So what was that process like of doing a level of group investing? Because I like group economics, but I do know that it has some upsides and some downsides. So tell me about what it was like to just get started when it came to group economics.
At the time, I was just focused on scaling up my business base. So I really didn't want to learn anything about real estate investing. I just wanted to put money in and get money back out, like the ATM, right? So it took for a few bad deals in order for me to go in to learn what it was that I needed to do on my own. I'm gonna say a few, we made a lot of good deals, but it was a few misjudgments that were made with some bad contractors that, we had a few bad deals. So at that point when, no one wants to lose, and it only takes for me to lose once or twice for me to learn what it is that I did wrong to make the correction. So at that point, that's when I partnered with my now spouse, and we decided to get into it ourselves full time.
Well, how was it that you were even able to get into like group investing? Like, did you research a group? How did you even find it?
No, the CPA orchestrated it. And I know everybody's like, are you crazy? You let the CPA orchestrate? No, he was already doing some real estate investing. And I was nosy. When I was a young girl, I was very, very nosy and inquisitive. And I asked a lot of questions. So it wasn't that he targeted me in any type of way and said, hey, this is what you should be doing with your money. I was asking him, what was he doing with his money? So that's how I was able to join in on some of the investments that they were doing. And everything worked out good until they deviated. I think it was to the point where with so many professionals that we all wanted hands-off investments. And that's when we dropped the ball on some of the projects.
Right. So many people wanted hands-off investments and no one really wanted to actually be active investors. They kind of just wanted to pull their money in, so there were no managers. Got it. Okay. So that's very interesting. So another piece for those of you, Stephanie just gave us some more money by sharing with us, is that the way how she stumbled across it is that she started asking more questions. She asked some more questions. So yes, so that's good. Now, in terms of that's a great comment, Saisha. Okay, so the other question I was going to ask you, at that time where you were more so investing in land, mostly through groups, how much capital was it costing for you to get started in that way? Were you was it thousands and thousands of dollars, or were you able to do it incrementally?
Well, when we came together as a group, we set the barrier of entry, right? So most of our investors were coming in anywhere from 2,500, 5,000. It depends on what you want. What you put in is what you get back out of the investment. So, most people start off with $2,500 investments, and then we just pooled our money together and started purchasing those properties, or like you said, parcels. So it wasn't any set point for the investment. It was basically based off of what we needed. So
Got it.
it was the purchase price point.
All right, got it. All right, so good. So for those of you who at this time has access to minimally of $2,500 minimally, if I was listening to that and I was thinking, what else can I do with that money without it just sitting in my savings account where it's probably earning 0.3%, it's probably not earning anything. I would definitely start researching in terms of being able to see what type of groups I can get a part of. Now, what's beautiful about your story is that you bought over 200 properties within the last 5 years. So that's a lot of properties, right? And not only do I hear value in terms of a portfolio, but I hear experience, right? Because if you do something 200 times, you're just gonna come out of that better than what you started, So with the group, when you were investing, what would you say if someone was saying, gosh, I have $2,500, I'd like to, be able to pull my money together. What would be some upsides?
It's always better to pool your money, because the more money in the pot, the more chances you can flip it, right?
Right.
The one
But where would I
upside,
go to, like, where could I, do you know of any of these groups now? Like, is this somewhere, like, are there like investment clubs that I would go
yes,
into, things like that? Yes, you would say it
there
would be
are local investment clubs. There's Broward has some, Dade has some real estate investment clubs. And what we do is we become members of those clubs, and then we form small investment groups within those clubs. So you can either spearhead one or you can join in on it. But do your research, do your due diligence. If it sounds too good, it's too good.
Okay, so how would I know that I'm in a good group? Like, what are some ways that you knew, like, gosh, these are some people I'm going to be able to make money with? What were some of the criteria to know, like, this is a good group?
Structure and open and honestness from the beginning. We need to see books, we need to have meetings, and we need to know where the fund's going. Never make just one person in charge of any groups that you're doing. We need to all be in on those deals or conversations that are being had, and it's always to, how should I put it? Put people in place to make the right decisions instead of just depending on one person to do it. And that's what happens sometimes with professionals. Like I said, we want our money to make money, but we don't want to have any hands-on involvement.
Yeah,
So
right. I
trust
noticed that. Yeah, I noticed that happens, is that oftentimes we're looking to just put something down. Like, what do you mean that? Okay, so, just put something down and just leave it in people's hands, which is something that I'm always advocating for us to do less and less of, because one, you minimize your ability to learn, and number two, you position yourself for way more opportunities to be taken. So when you were a part of different deals within the group economic space, how do you know that, okay, this deal is about to go down? Like, this is going to go bad? Like, when did you start recognizing some behaviors within the group, like, this is not going to work out, I'm going to lose my money?
So when you put someone in charge of a particular task and that task does not come back to the table the way it was sent out, you know that it's getting ready to be an issue. If someone is in, that's why I'm educating everybody now, don't put that responsibility in one person's hands to go out to look for the contractor. Everybody needs to do that as a group, and we all need to vet that contractor together, because at that point you're taking the word of someone else, and you don't know if they're in on it or if they're just too lazy to vet the contractor. And that's where one of the two deals that we were in at the latter part of the investment went south, because of the fact that an investor ran off with a substantial amount of money. I'm sorry.
Okay. Now, as these groups become more sophisticated, have there become like more guidelines and more structures to kind of minimize that happening? Or yes, so there's more documentation put in place in organizing these groups to reduce that from happening.
Correct.
So after you got so many sore thumbs with group economics, you now decided, you know what, I'm done with it. I'm just going to do this with my husband.
I still will do group economics, depending on how large of the deal.
I'm talking about when it comes to land purchases.
Oh, absolutely.
You still do group?
Right. No, we do not.
No more groups. Okay.
No
I
more.
just want to clarify that. You're done with the group on that. Like, yeah. Like, I will do some group economics, but when it comes to land, I'm with my man.
Right.
All right, I got it.
I like it.
When it comes to land, you're with your man. Okay. So what is the least amount that you have been able to purchase a piece of land for? What's the least amount?
$5,000. We've gotten a lot for $5,000, a 10,000 square foot lot. And it was in the Central Florida area.
Okay, so you currently, so that was, you got it for $5,000. Like, is that typical? Like in your search, are you kind of seeing like that's like the typical amount or something that you're going to get a good return on, or what are you thinking?
So
5,000 is.
let's just go with the 10,000 square foot lot, right?
Mhm.
The average price point for a lot can be anywhere from in that area 10 to 15,000, maybe even 20, depending on the where it's located. But when we're talking about South Florida, we're starting at 30 and up. I mean, there's some lots that are going for $50,000 and $60,000. So of course the area varies. South Florida is definitely more expensive for land. But it's doable because then the price point on the new construction is actually substantially higher in South Florida as well. So, like I said before, the price point matters when you do the negotiation, right?
Okay.
So therefore, a price point may be at 60,000 that after the value of the land, but you may be able to get it substantially low if you're doing your own negotiation with the owner directly.
Got it. Okay, so if someone was looking to go in by themselves, they had, they had saved up maybe 25, 5,000, $10,000, they may want to do it more than likely not in South Florida and definitely not in Miami where you and I live. That probably would not happen. But if they wanted to do a land purchase in another city that wasn't as popular here, they should possibly consider elsewhere, like Central Florida.
Central Florida, and even you need to do your research on those states where the land price point is substantially low. But I always stress this before you go into wanting to do anything holding land, fix a flipping, new construction, you need to always have a plan and an exit strategy. Because if you take all your savings and buy pieces of land, now what's the strategy? What are you going to do with that? Are you going to make the land make you more money? Are you going to hold it and wish upon a star? You just have to always have a detailed plan to know what you plan.
In a lot of the research that I've been looking into, a lot of the there's like, so you just kind of spoke against like some of the research that I've been doing in terms of like they have strong advocacy for getting the land and holding on to it, and you're gonna say that's not a part of your strategy for sure.
That is definitely a part of my strategy. But what I'm saying to anyone that may be cash strapped or taking their savings to invest, if that's not what you see yourself doing with that piece of land, you need to have a detailed strategy how you're going to monetize it. If you're going to hold it and wait for it to, the value to increase, then yes, of course, land is always going to increase. It's a shortage of land, and the need for it is always there. So the value will always increase. So yes, if you are into land buying, you can acquire lots monthly, quarterly, annually, and hold on to those and then sell them off with a detailed plan. But once again, that still requires a strategy and a structure as well. If you plan to acquire so many parcels in X amount of time, now you need to know what you plan to do with this one. Are you going to subdivide them? Are you going to lease the land to someone else and make it like a rental portfolio? It's different things that you can do with the land instead of just saying, hey, I bought this land for $5,000. I'm holding it. Now, how is that land going to make you make more money?
Right. Okay, got it. So yeah, like what I was saying, so you do that is a part of your strategy. So most of the thing I'm saying where like I think they're like really talking to like newbie investors where the advocacy is for like you to buy it and hold on to it just because the rate of return on it, the value that you can get on it, within the next 10, 15 years. But you're saying that there should be a little bit more strategy. And you're actually saying when we're talking, you said that this is actually how you started off. You started off kind of just buying and holding. And how did you start like, this is no longer my strategy? How did you move beyond that?
Because I'm just sitting on this land and I'm like, I'm seeing everybody else develop the land that they're sitting on. So I'm like, I want to learn that too. How do I develop my land? So then I just went and started asking more questions and then decided to put structure on the land to make a return on my investment faster. Instead of because listen, the land game is a slower, more strategic game. Flipping and new construction is a more profitable game. So you just have to decide what it is that you want to do and why. You have to know your why.
Right. So, so would you say that if someone is starting out and they're thinking, okay, I have 2,500, $3,000, $5,000, you would possibly say that is a part of their long-term strategy?
Long-term strategy.
That would not be
Yeah.
short-term investment strategy. That
Not
would be
at all.
long-term investment strategy, meaning you're going to buy this land for your child and you're just going to
Right.
sit it there in the next 10 to 15 years when they're getting ready to go to college. It's something that you're going to be able to get a return on. So when Christmas comes around, when the birthdays come around and you're thinking, gosh, what can I get for this child that's actually going to last? You know, land would possibly do
Yes.
that. But
Give
if you're
them land.
thinking
Yeah.
in terms of getting a quicker return on your money, then you would more so move over into flipping and then new construction.
Right.
Okay, got it. Now, I know that you were a teacher before. You were a math teacher, right? So how does a math teacher, which I do kind of see a correlation between mathematics and construction, but how did you go from flipping numbers to flipping properties? How did you say, okay, I got this land, Shawnee, and me and my man, we got this land. Now I need to put something on it. What was that like? That learning curve?
I'm very analytical. So I will analyze and break down a deal. And I'm very good with the numbers. So me and my spouse together are very good. He has his strong points. I'm telling you, he'll research something down to the end. And then I'll go in with the numbers on the back end. So basically, it's just one of those things. It's like I said, when we talked before, leveling up, just leveling up, wanting to do something a little bit more and coming up with a plan. Like, hey, if we can do that, then we can do this. So now
so when you can you go back in your mind to your first property and you were moving over, okay, great, I have this land, I have a few parcels, this is great, but now I'm looking at this because now I gotta develop this land, right? So what was that learning curve like from moving over from just like, okay, this is just land, into now developing the property? Can you remember some of the lessons that you went into, because now this is your first property?
Basically scary because you're depending on the expert that knows how to do this to take you under their wing and walk.
Did you pick a good first expert? Was the first expert?
Did.
Okay. Well, at least
and we're still working with them, as well.
Okay, good. Yeah. So you were able to. So where did you find this expert? How did you find that this is a good person to help me now move over into the business of building new constructions for profitability?
By referral. I had a friend that was into doing new construction. Like I said, I asked questions, and I vetted out the person that owned the company, and we had a good conversation and how we can do business together. We came with an investor model, and then we just started working from there. Everything just was a good fit. So that's how that worked.
Okay. So are you doing more new construction now than flipping, or is it balanced? Which are you doing more of now?
Since the economy did a little bit of a shift and we have an inventory issue, we turned up the new construction, I want to say 18. So we started doing more new construction projects from 2018 to now than doing flips. Now we do still do flips, but we substantially do wholesaling.
Okay, wholesaling. So you do more wholesaling. That's probably what you're doing more now than some of the other strategies that you're putting in place. All right, for the listening audience and those of you who are sitting in, what we're talking about, Stephanie has purchased over 200 properties. She's talking about how she moved over from holding on to the land and now moving over into developing, and then how she does some flipping and some wholesaling as well. These are all things that she does with her real estate portfolio. And I just want to kind of give like a little statistical data to this conversation as to why this is so important. So what's very interesting when it comes specifically to South Florida during the pandemic, right after Texas, we have become the place where everybody wants to live. People from New Jersey, people from New York are really driving our housing market crazy, right? And so the cost of purchasing a home is crazy. When you're talking about the number of people that are moving here, you're talking about 1,000 people moving to South Florida every single day, right? So if that is happening here and we're number 2, what we have to start to think of is like, gosh, if this is happening here and maybe you can't, do that $30,000 in terms of purchasing land here, where if you pull together with some of your friends, it could actually really work out as a really good investment. Because one thing for sure, it's like when I go outside, it's like, where they gonna put the people at, right?
Yeah.
If I see one more building, how am I gonna breathe, right? That's like, goodness gracious, can I get some oxygen? No, you know, it's people on top of people on top of people. Supply and demand is crazy. So then you start looking into other markets. Some of the markets that you have identified is Central Florida, and you mentioned one more as a good place to start thinking about, because if supply and demand is getting limited here, it's also getting limited elsewhere in a market that you may be able to afford. So I know you mentioned Central Florida. Is there another? Central Florida and Wells, do you like to purchase that now?
Central Florida, Arkansas is good. We're doing some acquisitions in the Carolinas. And I've been over to Texas, but once everything started going down in Texas, we kind of pulled out with the flood zones. You know, that was sounding like a good idea at first, but then I said no. So, you know, we're following the price point, and we're also following what we can do with the projects in that area. Because you have to follow the market and the trends too.
Okay, so following the market and the trends, but right now you were looking at Texas. Texas market is just as crazy as ours right now, just because of due to the pandemic, more people are just moving to where it's a lot warmer. You know, they're moving. And it's just crazy. It's driving the cost of purchasing a home crazy. So start looking into other markets. You say that you like Central Florida. All right. So I do hope say that Central Florida. Say that again.
I love Central Florida.
She said she loves Central Florida. She says she loves it. Okay. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, she is tagged here. If you guys have any questions as it relates to real estate, as it relates to getting started with how do you grab your first property. Before we close out, we're going to close out here and move on. So if you guys have some questions, go ahead and drop them in the comment section. But you also mentioned some level of financing. So even when you don't have that $25,000 to $30,000 in terms of liquid capital, there is some way to get in the game through financing. Can you talk about a little bit about the criterion for getting in that regard?
So when you're getting ready to do anything with land, bank financing is a little bit tough. Okay, you have to have excellent credit scores. They want you to have a little bit of experience in projects that you've done before, but it can be done. And if it's raw land, you know, you got to go in for raw land loans. You have developed land, which the interest rates are going to be a little bit lower than the raw land loans. But if you can't get approved for any other financing, there are other creative ways that you can pull money to buy land. And, you know, you can use business credit, you can use business lines of credit, you know, and then you can pull those and purchase the parcels and do it that way. So yes, the financing for the land works the same as you would get approved for a mortgage. It's pretty much the same.
Really, except it's lower amounts. It's lower amounts, and then the collateral isn't as attractive.
Absolutely. And the interest rates are higher.
Huh?
And the interest rates are substantially higher.
Oh, and the interest rates are substantially higher on
the wow.
Okay. Yeah, even on the land, just because of the risk associated.
The risk. There you go.
Got it. The risk factor. Okay, got it. Alrighty. So happy International Women's Day. Thank you so much. This was a really great show. I hope that you guys were able to at least add some value to your purse. Of course, I'm a little redundant because I want to make sure that we're not only talking at you, we're talking with you. So Stephanie has done an incredible job of helping here to talk to you about how to get in land. Number one, first perspective is that it's something that she kind of just landed on. She was talking to her CPA. He started telling her, hey, listen, you really need to reduce your taxation. Here's a possible way to do so. So she spent a little bit of time of understanding group economics. She did some group economics, and then she learned some things, and then she lost some things, right? So what we do from that is be willing to get started. Did you make some money even while you lost?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, right. So so there was some loss, right? But there was some gains as well. Okay. And most of what you probably learned was experience. That way, once you get to deal number 205, you're nowhere near as as you were at deal number 1. Okay. She talked about the ability to get some financing. She said that you should look into it where being a lot more risk involved simply because it's land, right? She says that a part of holding on to it would be right at the beginning. You're probably just going to hold on to it, but that's your long-term strategy. Once you do acquire some land, you want to move over and start saying, what can I do with this land? And some of the things that she's done with the land is she's developed it. She's been able to get some new construction property out of it. And 2 of the favorite places that she likes to develop in right now is Central Florida and Florida.
And Port St. Lucie.
And Port St. Lucie.
Right.
Okay, so for those of you who are looking to get started in another way, this would be a very excellent way. As always, I like to provoke some level of thought to get you to thinking about some more money. As always, I hope that I was able to add some value to your purse. Next week, we'll talk about building your credit score. I'll be in the building all by myself. So if you have some questions about them, drop them in the comment section. Hit me in my DM because I'll be steady and ready. Until
I have
next
one more thing to add. One more thing that's going to come.
I was about to close you out. Go ahead.
One more thing to add. One thing too that really works that may be beneficial to you when you're thinking like, look, I don't have the money to buy the land, or nor do I have the credit to get approved for the loan. Owner financing. Owner financing is a thing that really helps newbies who can't get started the traditional way. Owner financing, I don't know if you're familiar with what owner financing is.
Oh yes, I am. But you can go ahead and, but maybe someone in the audience, you can go ahead and expound. That's fine.
It is just where the owner of the property or the land basically takes on the mortgages if the bank would, and they'll set their terms directly and set the payment plan or payment process through them, which now makes you come out of the pocket with less money and also with a better plan. So it's a way to get in. It's a way to get in the game to do owner financing. Is that readily available? It just depends. Depends. Like I said, everything is negotiable. You ask, you may receive. So I wanted to lead with that because we didn't talk about owner financing. So that's what I want to lead with.
I think that's a great place to leave. I think that's a really great place to leave. If you guys, we've got your money bags turning inside of your mind, you have some questions, you can follow us over to IG because we're going to go ahead and have this conversation with some more questions. So if you feel like, dang, Shani, I wish I could get more of this, I want to keep on talking, just follow us over to IG on Purse Empowerment. Until next time, do something that's going to add some value to your purse.